Welcome to Grassroots Takeover. We are the show about people making everyday revolution. And that's with me, Alison Playford.
And that's with me, Mark Weaver. And we are a listener-supported show. So if you like what we do, just go to patreon.com/grassroots takeover and support us. So, is it still safe to go to Calais and support migrants in the wake of the Paris attacks? That is the question we're asking. And we're also going to look at how to pick a side in general when something like this happens. Whose side are you on, and how do you even ask that question? But first, the immediate Calais, the people there who are fleeing the wars that we've started over in Syria and other places.
Right, yeah, I visited the camp shortly after the Paris attacks. And I was a little nervous in doing that. I didn't know if the situation would have changed there or it would be a, dangerous or bad time to go. And actually, it was a great choice. It's a really good time to go to Calais.
I was like a little worried myself when you told me you were going because there was quite a lot of stuff all over the internet. As soon as the Paris attacks happened, there was like people saying, "Oh, there's the camps are on fire. There's like fascist attacks. There's like it's being militarized. The borders are closed." I mean, people were just kind of like. Everyone was gearing up before to right, we've all decided now we want to support refugees and migrants. We want to stand up to the people trying to keep them out. Then all of a sudden it seemed like a massive aggression, but that wasn't your experience, was it?
No, we had a really successful trip. Just a few days after the Paris attacks in the camp, people were delighted and very gracious to see us, as they always are, which always surprises me considering it's our governments that have created the situations that have forced them to flee their own country, their home country. But yeah, people were really pleased to see us, bringing us crazily sweet tea and supporting us as we did our solidarity work over there. It was a great trip.
What kind of people did you meet there? I mean, you've told me all sorts of sort of crazy, sounding stories of the conversations you've had. But I mean, I think it's probably quite hard for a lot of people to imagine just who is it you're going to meet face to face when you go to the Calais camps.
Yeah, well, somebody who comes immediately to mind is a young woman that I've met before on the camp. I saw her again on my most recent trip, and when a friend of mine asked her how she was doing in her attempts to cross the channel and come to the UK, she was saying that she had to take a week off from attempting because when she attempts to cross over to the UK with her young baby, she has an 18-month-old baby, the baby is very disturbed and cries overnight because they have to wait outside at night to try and make the crossing. She said she has to take a week off from trying to travel over with her baby so that the baby can rest, and then they'll keep trying again. So that's a typical example of somebody who's working extremely hard just to have their most basic rights respected.
So this is a young woman, 20, 21?
About 23, I'd say.
Right, so a young woman who's got a young child and she's fleeing war and fleeing economic warfare, so in other words, mass poverty and so on. And she's taken a week off because her baby's so exhausted and tired, the baby starts crying and complaining when she tries to sneak over the border into the UK where she hopes she's going to be able to get a decent quality of life.
Yeah, and young girl on her own, no friends and family around her with a tiny little child,
It's infuriating, really, because it's like these are the people that the London Evening Standard and whoever else are splurging all over, just constant scaremongering, saying these are the people we need to exclude, these are the people we need to send back, these are the people we need to, respond to with gunships and stuff. It's young women with babies, it's families, it's people fleeing the wars that we've helped start.
Right. And if people are wanting to go out, people from the UK are still wanting to go out to Calais, I can certainly recommend that as a very positive thing to be doing. And there's some great ways that you can connect up with people so you can do that as usefully as possible.
And I think you've got, where do people go? Because you're the person who knows about this.
Actually, there's a really great resource on Facebook called, I'll give you the name of the page a couple of times because it's quite a long name. It's called Calais, People to People Solidarity, Action from the UK. So that's the name of the Facebook page, and it's called Calais, People to People Solidarity, Action from the UK. And if you click on all the different tabs at the top of that page, it will give you all sorts of information about what goods are required, what goods aren't, who to connect with so that anything you bring is expected, and all sorts of other things, pieces of advice to make you a more effective person to go and take your solidarity to the camp.
Yeah, and first message, I guess, don't be afraid. Go over there and support.
Yeah, don't be afraid. Go over there and support. People are so lovely. It's an honour to be able to connect with the people there that have been through so much and are doing so much to teach the rest of the world about the freedom that we need.
So we've spoken a little bit about the Calais camps, but we're also going to talk a little bit about borders and security, the whole narrative of there's a threat, so now we have to increase security, beef up the military, beef up the police. Yeah, that's what we're going to go on.
And will that make us safe? Will increasing state security measures actually make us safe?
Well, I had an experience that I'll share with you. I was talking to a young guy in a trendy bar in the East End. Not going to explain what I was doing there. It's not really my scene. But anyway, there I was. I found myself talking to him, and I made the mistake of saying to him when he asked what I did, I said, I'm a bit of a political activist. And so he kind of insisted we must have a political conversation in a horrendously noisy place over drinks. So anyway, I tried my best. But he basically said, we were talking about the Paris attacks, as everybody kind of was at the time. And he said, do you believe in open borders? And I said, yeah, I believe we should have open borders, people should be allowed to freely move, and we should integrate people into societies. And he said, yeah, me too. You know, obviously, great idea, brilliant, ideal sort of position. But how are you going to prevent people like ISIS moving into the country and, you know, attacking us? And I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I mean, what popped into my head was like the idea that ISIS aren't already in the capital city of the UK, like, just seemed crazy to me. Like, you know, this is the UK, London, the capital city of the UK. It's like one of the global capitalist centers. It's like, you know, the UK is America's strongest ally. You know, it's the UK is an ally to tons of dictators in the Middle East, pouring arms into the Middle East, attacking countries. You know, like the idea that groups like ISIS or Al-Qaeda or whoever wouldn't already have people walking around among us, like in London, just seemed crazy. So what are borders going to do?
Right, and the Paris attackers were Europeans, were they not? So keeping out people that are needing to move, needing to come here, it just has absolutely no impact on whether people are going to make terrorist attacks.
Yeah, he seemed a little bit kind of like skeptical, you know, when I was trying to tell him this, because it is kind of basically kind of the opposite position to sort of what the papers are saying and stuff, if you like. But yeah, I mean, I just think that's kind of the situation. Like the people who the borders are going to keep out are the people like you were meeting at Calais, civilians who are fleeing war and poverty. The people who are going to commit atrocities, you know, people like ISIS, they're probably likely going to have passports, you know, real or otherwise, but they're going to be able to move in or out of borders, and they're probably just already here. They've probably, you know, got sympathizers who will happily act from within the society rather than actually bother to enter into it.
Right, and the basic point of borders is to keep people out. It's to preserve wealth within a certain area. So, and that's a racist thing to do. So to continue to pursue racist policies based on where people are geographically born, based on a totally random factor, is going to increase inequality and pain and suffering in the world, which is then going to feed
into the extreme violence. Exactly. Yeah. And you know, I was talking to a police officer for my sins. I was talking to a police officer about this a couple of days after the Paris attacks, and I just basically, you know, was making conversation. I just said like, "Oh, are you guys all on high alert? Are you all on like DEFCON 1? You know, because of all this?" And they shrugged and they sort of, you know, they were, don't know really, like, you know, think maybe someone got an email or something like that. But they basically said the only thing they're doing is putting extra bobbies on the beat so people can see them, not because it does anything, because it just reassures people. So in that explanation, you know, the police officer was making it very plain. We do this not because we can actually prevent attacks like this by having more coppers on the streets. It just kind of makes certain people feel better. You know, it just makes them think, oh, okay, well, at least there's a response. The only people, it's quite telling the sorts of people that are really calling for, you know, closing the borders and militarizing the police and all of that, because they're the same people who have basically racist attitudes against migrants and refugees and stuff like that, because it's those people who will come up against the borders and the armed police, not ISIS.
Yeah, and I think it's something else as well. I think the idea of having open borders is so separate from what we average people in the UK imagine as normal, that it's hard to make that leap. You know, we're told, oh, we need these borders. They're really important. If we didn't have them, or, you know, everything would collapse. It'd be terrible, you know. But actually, that's not the case. We don't need the borders. The borders are making it worse, and we would manage without them. We'd manage a heck of a lot better.
Well, you know, it usually comes with like two things, doesn't it? You usually say, yeah, we should have open borders and we should allow people to freely move, but we should probably stop trying to blow up half the world, which is creating all of this migration and destabilization.
Right, but that's the way it works, isn't it? If we do have open borders, then the pressure is then on us to not do the
to
things.
Stop destroying the world and make people running from the carnage we're creating.
Right, so that's why we need the borders open.
Well, you know, and I tried to sort of get all of this across to the young guy in the trendy bar in the East End over loud house music. It didn't quite go off, but yeah, I mean, I just think it's a really important point. I mean, the main point being, if you're a person out there who's thinking, well, I agree with people's right to freely move, and I agree that we should have free societies, but we're under threat. If you look, I think anyone can see that building higher borders, putting more security cameras everywhere, putting machine guns into policemen's hands, you know, putting more police on the beat, this isn't what prevents groups like ISIS from attacking civilians. And ISIS know it. That's why they do it.
So, for our third and final topic, how do you pick a side? It's put to us through the mainstream media in a very binary way. We're either for ISIS, for terrorist extremists, or we're for imperial governments that blow the hell out of civilians who are not responsible for the terrorist attacks.
I don't know. I mean, like, I don't want to sound like I'm being critical of people because, I mean, let's say when all of the French flags appeared all over Facebook profiles. I mean, I know plenty of people who did that. And I think it's actually like totally appropriate and laudable in its own way for people to express solidarity with people who are being slaughtered, basically, and express opposition to people carrying out extreme acts of violence. That's fine. But the thing is, I didn't put the French flag on my Facebook because I just feel I'm not willing to express my opposition to groups like ISIS by then lending my support to entities like the French state or the UK state or whatever who have committed absolutely incredible crimes around the world and continue to do so.
Right, and then we saw the bombs start to fall on Syria and we saw the injured and killed children, awful, awful sights. And, you know, the French flags started to come down off those profiles from many people.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I just think like I say, I don't want to be critical of people. This is like a big trap we could fall in. We could just start having a go at each other for like how we respond, you know? But it's like that's the whole game that these sort of state powers are playing. They're saying, well, if you despise what people like ISIS are doing, then your way to express that is to get your flags out and wave support for what we're doing, you know? And I just think I'm not on either of their side. You know what I mean? I mean, just look at the Iraq war. I mean, I'm not prepared to say, oh, I stand with the UK, because the UK just committed, you know, one of the greatest war crimes in a century. So I guess, how do I pick a side? I look at ISIS, who want to dominate people and areas. They want to expand their power. They want to take over places. They want to rule, basically. That's what ISIS's ideology is sort of ultimately about. But if you look at the UK and, you know, places like France and the United States, they have the same ideology in that way. They want to dominate the world. They want to dominate regions. They want to dominate people and be in control. And so I'm not on ISIS's side, and I'm not on the UK state's side. I'm not on the French state's side. I'm on the side of people who want to live in peace and cooperation.
But that's not the way things are presented to us. Things are presented to us in terms of how, yeah, dominating forces and governments are the important factors and the change makers in the world. But no, it's not true. It never has been, and it never will be. People are doing the work, and that's what's important, that we cross boundaries, cross borders, and support each other to take the changes that we need.
Yeah, and it's a bit annoying because you don't get a flag for that.
I don't want a flag.
Yeah, but it'd be good for Facebook profiles. You could say, I've got my flag out that supports people and social justice and stuff like that. But Yeah, anyway, not to diss the people who put the French flag on their profiles. Absolutely
There's
not.
people like screaming red and black at this right now.
Okay, yeah, that's true. I know we can hear you in the back of our minds, but yeah, I'm on the side of migrants. I'm on the side of people fighting austerity. I'm on the side of environmental activists. I'm not on anybody's side, who are trying to win domination and control by violence, whether they're a powerful state or a terrorist group.
Yeah, which is why we do our work in the world. We continue to live consciously. We go and do solidarity work in Calais, if that's what you want to do, caring for people in this country. We work together, we respect each other, we undo all the racism and prejudice that we've internalized through the conditioning of this society. We do our real work.
Thanks for listening. See you again.
Grassroots Takeover is a listener-supported show. If you like what we do and want to back us, go to patreon.com/Grassroots Takeover. For more shows and extra stuff, follow Grassroots Takeover on YouTube, on Facebook and on Twitter.